The Women of Ill Repute, with your hosts, Wendy Mesley and Maureen Holloway.
Wendy, do you remember when you were a bright young thing?
What do you mean, as opposed to a bright old thing?
Yes, you are a bright old thing. We both are. And we are both called broadcasting veterans. I have mixed feelings about that. It sounds like we've been through a war.
Or legends. I mean, that's kind of nice. I always wanted to be a legend.
Yeah, but it's meant as a compliment, but doesn't it make you feel like you're 1,000?
Well, yeah, I guess. Could be worse.
And legends often take a fall, don't they?
Well, you'd think I would know about that by now, but they do. Let's not go there.
They do. But back to bright young things. There was a time when we were both up and comers. We were girls on the go. We were promising young women. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, but it was all men. We were surrounded by men everywhere. They were in positions of power.
And we were both okay. We managed to do well without anybody accusing us of sleeping with the boss. Remember when they used to say that about women, successful women all the time? Oh, for sure, she's sleeping with her boss.
Yeah, and I dress like a man, but, no, I don't think anyone ever accused us of that, as far as I know, anyway.
Sorry, I need to think about this. Did that ever work? Like, did anybody ever claim to be successful because they slept their way to the top? I mean, name somebody who you could say is famous for sleeping her way to the top.
Well, I guess there was Kim Kardashian, or was that the sex tape? I can't remember. Did she sleep her way, or?
That's still sleeping your way to fame, I guess. That would qualify. Can you think of anybody else?
Playboy bunnies? I don't know. Maybe I'm searching.
Is that the top?
I don't think so. Do they even exist now? I don't know. Besides, I
don't know. I know somebody who used to be a Playboy bunny in New York many years ago. That would be an interesting chat for the show.
Yeah, and I think Me Too kind of got rid of that whole idea about sleeping to the top. So it's a different world now.
Well, and also, if women could actually sleep their way to the top, wouldn't there be more of us there? Don't you think?
Well, there are lots of women in broadcasting now, but I guess they're not at the top or on top.
No. All right, we're maybe on top. But back to bright young things. Our guest today is certainly that. Jax Irwin is co-host of Adam Wilde, Jax, and TJ, the morning show on Virgin Radio in Toronto. She's a co-host. Adam is the host, and we know this because he gets to use his last name.
Maybe I shouldn't mention this, but you did a show, and it was called Darren and Mo, so no last names.
And then it was the Ann Mo show for a while because Darren disappeared. And I guess there was some equality because we both used our first names, but he had his came first. But anyway, Jax is from Halifax. She's also a lesbian, and these two facts are interesting but do not entirely define her.
Yeah, she has this huge, if you're on social media, which everybody is these days, she has this huge following because she does these women on the street videos. She dresses up as a leprechaun. I think there's one where she's an octopus, like
you're like you do. She's absolutely fearless. She has a lot to say about being true to herself and finding humor and absurdity in everyday life and working with guys, good guys in her case.
I think it's important at this point that we say that we talked to her before the scandal, that the one about women in radio working with not so good guys. I think you might know something about
Yeah,
this.
I might. So, okay. So let's put this in context in case you haven't heard. And from our viewpoint, it seems everybody has. But in May of this year, 2022, a very brave woman, Jennifer Valentine, went public with allegations of emotional abuse at the hands of a former male co-host, one that I also worked with and with whom I had similar experiences. Now, as of press time, can I say that? As of press time, that show is no longer on the air, and an investigation into what happened is ongoing.
Yeah, very juicy. It's kind of got everybody focused on an important thing. Anyway, we want to get Jennifer on the podcast once the dust settles, if it ever settles. And in the meantime, we have Jax, who has her own hurdles to jump, like coming out, moving to the big city, and finding love.
Yes. She brought her girlfriend home to mom, although I think her mom should have gotten her own girlfriend.
And Jax and her girlfriend got engaged.
Yes. Yeah, that happened.
Yeah, so it was right after we spoke, so that was so nice, and a nice happy ending.
Yes, and there's your context. So stay with us for Jax Irwin. Wendy, this is Jax. Jax, this is Wendy. I don't think you guys have met before.
Hi, so nice to meet you.
Hello.
So we only talk to people who have short hair.
That's right. Looking good, ladies.
Well, same to you. Now, I don't know whether you realize this. we do have something in common more than our short hair. We've all three worked at CKFM.
99.9.
Yeah.
I was looking through this, and I mean, there's been, a lot of names that have come through those call letters. But yeah, I didn't realize all three of us had gone through it. So it's incredible.
So Wendy was there first back in, the 40s.
No. It was a long time ago.
And Wendy was a traffic reporter. And then I came on about a couple of years after she had left, and her star was already on the rise. And I was also a traffic reporter. And then they changed it to Mix 99.9, and then they changed it to Virgin. And then you went over, 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was 3 years in January that our show turned 3.
A few things have changed. When I was there, it was all there were teletypes. But aside from that, there were old guys, a whole bunch of old guys. And now, it's great. There you are.
It's young and it's fun. And we get to dance to the music, which is always a plus because I just want to dance. So it works out.
Did you just get up from your nap? I know Maureen used to get up at 3:30 in the morning to do her morning show.
I had my nap a little while ago, but the lines on my face look fresh. So you never know anymore whether I'm waking up from a nap or going down for one. But yeah, I usually have my nap at about 1:00 for about a half an hour.
And how is that? How is your life? Because I'm not doing it anymore, but it's like a vampire experience.
If it was 10 years ago, absolutely not. Now I love it. I like getting up. I like the peace of it. I like having my coffee on my own. I like early hours. I like not a lot of cars on the road. And I like going to bed early. I do. I really like going to bed early. It's something that fits my lifestyle just perfectly. And now I have an excuse to go to bed early. So it works out well.
I used to think when I was going into the office at God knows what hour in the morning, I used to think there's nobody up and I can say whatever I want and be outrageous. And then you'd come out and everybody would be up. It's it's a demi-monde or an underworld that happens on morning shows.
Yeah, on their way to work. Yeah, it is. Especially in the depths of the winter, you're this is another world.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. And it does, especially on a morning show, you're tucked into a cave with 2 or 3 or 4 other people. And they're the only people that you see because you leave when the rest of the world is coming into work. So you're working with 2 fellas. So the difference is, apart from the fact that Wendy and I were traffic reporters, is that you're actually a full-blown member of the show as opposed to the designated female laugher.
Yeah, I lucked out because I had already known the guys before I started. And when we started, we also had Jesse Blake, who had been a friend of mine when I was working with Rogers for years. So it didn't really start as a show. It was kind of just an extension of our friendship. That's the way it felt. And we got to have fun together. So yeah, Adam and I came from Rogers at the same time. I had known TJ for years. So I lucked out because it wasn't, for lack of a better term, an arranged marriage. I already knew these guys. I already had foundations with them. I had known Adam, for almost a decade. So we had fun off the air. And now we were lucky enough to have fun on the air as a brand new show. And as you guys know, building a new show is hard. It is hard times, and spending that much time together. If you don't enjoy each other's company, it's a whole different thing. But yeah, I lucked out with the guys that I work with because I genuinely love them.
It's an unusual situation because, and we'll talk about this a little more if you're willing to do that, but, normally there's 2 guys and a girl or a guy and a girl. And, the woman often goes, "Oh, you're awful." And in your case, it's more of an equilibrium. Do you think that might have something to do, other than your friendships, of the fact that you're gay and out and the dynamic is a little different? Are you on a more equal footing? I mean, has this helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond the fact that I think that they help prop me up a lot on that, they don't want me to be a laugh track. And I'm grateful for that. I won't let myself be a laugh track. I don't present as a stereotypical female and I don't want to come off as one. I want to have my opinions heard. Now, I'm not interested in just laughing and telling the guys to shut up every 5 seconds. And I think, you ladies are like that too. I don't want to just be on telling someone to be quiet. That's not what we're paid for. And I was lucky enough to be propped up by them a lot to do that and to have space and a safe zone to do that. But yeah, it's equal footing in there, which I'm very grateful for. But, as a gay and masculine presenting woman, it's a tough sell sometimes.
Yeah, I found I didn't know that much about, Mo will tell you, I don't know that much about private radio, and it's a huge world and the vast majority of people listen to it. And so I was Googling you and I came across this weird wiki site, this fake wiki site. And it was, is she lesbian? Is she non-binary? And I was going, oh, for God's sake, really? And then, I don't know, I read about you coming out. It's still like a big deal. And I don't know, I guess I have flashbacks of what it was like and all the old boys telling old boy jokes, and like things have changed, but maybe they haven't changed as much as I'd hoped.
Yeah, actually, somebody had told one of the most Googled questions about me is, am I a man or a woman? I identify with she, her pronouns, and I identify as lesbian. Like, I've never made that a secret, so I'm not sure why people think I'm this mysterious queer character. But I'm very aware of the fact that 5, 10, 15, 20, definitely beyond that years ago, I wouldn't be on air and able to present as I am because it wasn't that digestible female character. You know what I mean? And I still have to deal with a lot of text and a lot of feedback. It's a lot better these days, but it's still, that lesbian on the radio.
Really? Does that hurt?
Some days, of course. You know what I mean? I'm a human. I have a much better shield and a much better protective turtle shell. And I have a lot of love in that room that, like, when I do get those texts, I'm not alone in, I'm not isolated in that. But like, we always talk about how far we've come, but whenever you hear, well, why do we have a pride? That's exactly why. Because you still get those texts every morning.
We can change the topic in a second because we don't want to make the whole thing about being a lesbian co-host.
No. And one of the questions is, does this define you?
Gay FM, girls, let's go.
But I do want to tell you something because it just has made me think of so much. Like my mom and dad, they got married in the 50s and my dad was gay and it was illegal then. And it was supposedly a mental illness and they were going to fix it and everything. But of course, it wasn't a mental illness. It wasn't going to get fixed. She left him and raised me on my own. I'm a miracle. But it's just like he worked in radio 1,000 years ago and he had to pretend that he was somebody that he wasn't. And then Maureen and I, more probably me, because, well, maybe not, but I was surrounded by guys who had these old ideas of what women were. God forbid what lesbians or gay men were. I don't know. I like to think that times have changed so much, but then I saw like you talking about coming out and you were in tears. Like it's obviously still a thing.
Yeah. And I like to say that, I'm a fun and brave person. So I can't imagine how somebody who's vulnerable and 16 feels when they see the stuff on the internet or is coming out. If I get it and I'm okay with it, I can't imagine somebody who isn't. But, like your father, like that's a terrifying time. And that's a terrifying way to live, just to want to be yourself. The 80s and 90s. And I know that you guys weren't on air then. You guys are 21.
30 now.
No, we're 40. Let's just be honest, okay?
But you have carved the way for females. And I can't imagine a time to have to sit through those jokes and have to be told who you have to be. And I think it's brave, whether you're gay, whether you're straight. I think it's brave to be a female sometimes.
Gordon Sinclair, he was a host on CFRB at that point. He's a dinosaur. He's long gone.
You're talking about Gordon Sinclair, senior here.
Senior, yeah, not junior. He had tickets to some show and it was I can't remember what it was called, but it was some kind of thing where people were naked and he was like, oh, what do they do when they're on their period? Here's your first assignment, Wendy. Go and find out. I'm like, oh my God. But what are you going to do? Like the guy's in the big chair and he's a big deal. And yeah, so I'm sure you could tell tales.
I look back now, things changed very rapidly over the last 5 years, just the Me Too movement and just a general awareness of what it's like to be female in all sorts of industries. But I look back on some of the things that I tolerated because there was no choice. And I am now aghast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a male co-host tell me the only reason why he can work with me is because I got a good attitude.
Meaning what?
Meaning I didn't get upset about comments like, go cover that, see what they do when they're having their period. Like that kind of thing.
It's atrocious. I applaud that. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it was meant as a compliment, but it meant like, oh yeah, you don't bring your female baggage into the room.
Who are your heroes now? Or who pisses you off? What gets you going?
My heroes when it comes to media or?
Well, those are two questions. Who are your heroes and what pisses you off? Do you have a hero that pisses you off?
Yeah, you know what? I can answer that in one question. Ellen is my hero and she pisses me off.
DeGeneres,
yeah. I don't think that I'd be on air and in an equal third chair seat if Ellen DeGeneres didn't pave the way, a more masculine presenting lesbian in media. And I think that she really carved the way for a lot of young gay and queer folks in media. But the backlash over the past couple of years has pisses me off, and the way she's handled it. So that it's like never meet your heroes kind of thing. They're going to let you down. They're humans. And she's done so much good work when it comes to advocacy and outreach. And like I said, paving the way, but she's also human. She's gone through a few things over the past couple of years with her staff and, in the press and everything. But of course she has. She's worked really hard for a very long time. But I look up to her a lot because I didn't know that I could, be gay and be me and be on air. It was like one or the other. And when I saw her and I started watching her in different capacities at a very young age, I was like, oh, she's her and gay and has a job. Like, what? Oh, she's gay and can pay her rent. But I really hung on to her. And I still do in a lot of ways for a very long time because she paved the way and gave me something really to look up to.
It's funny, Maureen, when I told somebody, an acquaintance, that we were doing this thing called Women of Ill Repute and tried to explain that it's not women who've done something bad. It's women who have I don't give a shit. I'm going to do it anyway because I think it's the right thing to do. And she said, oh my God, finally. And she's ancient like me. And she said, finally, somebody who's we can just be ourselves. Because when I was on the Hill 1,000 years ago, Parliament Hill, I got big shoulder pads and I had ugly shoes and I dressed in bags so that nobody would notice that I was a girl. We pretended to be men. It was, so it's just being ourselves. It's everybody is different, but being yourself.
And not making yourself smaller to fit in those places.
Yeah, or being the laugh track, as Maureen says. Yeah.
Oh, you're so bad.
Stop it. And sometimes I'll genuinely say stop it, Adam. And I'm like, you stop it, Jax. Don't say that.
The women of ill repute.
Jax, growing up in Dartmouth, was it a tough neighborhood? Were you a tough kid? I know you stole a car at 15, but you come from a loving family and, your childhood, from what I know, was a happy one. But tell me a little bit about what it was like to be you there then.
I wasn't in a tough neighborhood and I was a tough kid. I was awful, girls. I was bad. I was bad news. Looking back on that, I think a lot of it had to do with, I wasn't comfortable in my own skin because, I came out at the end of high school, but I was wild, and God bless my mom, my dad. They had a lot of patience, but yeah, I was, drinking in the woods. I stole my parents' car. I was skipping school. Awful attitude, terrible, great grades, awful attitude, just belligerent. And then at about 17, around the time that I kind of found myself a little bit, I figured it all out. But oh yeah, I was just, and it's funny now because I think I'm a good person, but I was just vile back then, saucy.
Saucy's okay, though.
Not when it's my poor mother. She was probably tired of me. Yeah.
Your dad passed away, 3 years ago?
For the summer, it was 6 days after my 30th and a week before I signed on to Virgin Mornings. So it was at this super pivotal time. And it still makes me teary because it was I had so much to celebrate, but God, it was hard.
Why do you tear up? What was it about your relationship with him?
Oh, he's absolute sweetheart. And you guys aren't recording this on video. Okay, good. He had every bumper sticker of every station that I worked for on the back of his car. He was a honey. He was from Charlottetown, softest man you'd ever meet. And he was just such a good guy.
And he loved you, obviously. He must have been so proud of what you did.
Yeah, he was so proud of me, but he also he kept me in line. He held me accountable, but he was also gave me my first couple $100 to take my internship from Bridgewater. He was there wherever I needed to go. He was there for me. And I tear up about that time because I feel it wasn't a coincidence that I signed my papers to get my dream job, essentially, just as he was leaving, I feel he was here you go. Take this. Yeah. So Wendy, we're just meeting. I'm crying. I swear I don't always cry. It was a really beautiful and hard time, but I feel that's given me, and you guys know, to do radio, you have to be vulnerable. And I was doing solo for so long, and it's a hard thing to be vulnerable. But I feel as messed up as that experience was of losing a parent, it gave me this different layer of vulnerability that I needed to actually serve the people who are listening to me.
That's interesting. A lot of people say that loss or bad experiences, although that's not so much a bad one as it is a sad one, toughens you up. But it's the opposite for you. It sort of peeled some layers away.
Yeah. And I want to be open. I want to be authentic. I want to be genuine. And like I said, I want to actually serve the people who are listening to me because like we said, I don't want to be a laugh track. And I think that we have more to offer than that. So it's also, believe it or not, grief is a very common thing. It, I think, gives me a good relatability to some folks that may need a little softness in those times.
It's so interesting, I think, the relationship with an audience, because with CBC, like I was there for 1,000 years, and I think people sort of felt that they got to know me, and yet it was hard. Like it was probably more through, I don't know, interviews that you do or something rather than actually doing things, although things slip out in interviews. But you weren't supposed to have an opinion. You weren't supposed to have a real personality. But things are changing. Like I watch some of the reporters on the Hill now, and like they go to drag shows and they talk about this person's amazing. Like if I'd done, not that that was my thing, but if that had been my thing and I talked about it back then, it wouldn't have been allowed. So there is, I don't know, I think openness is really important.
And there should be space for it. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for holding space for me getting a little tear there, ladies.
Oh, no. This is actually kind of what we want to do.
Get it out of me, Mo. Come on now. Wendy.
We want to have, interesting women on and make them cry. That's really what our purpose is.
When I worked on Marketplace, there was a producer on Marketplace who always used to say, I hate it when people cry. Like, why do they cry? And I'm like, well, because their whole life has fallen apart because their fridge doesn't work or whatever.
Or they're moved, or they're just incredibly moved, I mean, I think once I had kids, I cried all the time. John has never stopped crying since we've had kids. In a good way. He cries like, wow, I'm not going to throw him under a bus, but he is a cry baby. Let me tell you.
Soft man. I love it.
I want to ask you a little bit. When did you know you were funny?
I hope I am. I knew that I could lighten up situations when I was younger and provide some sort of value. I think probably like in elementary when I would be with friends and want to get things going or make things a little bit spicier or, get the class going. I think I really realized it when I started getting in trouble for it, that I was being like a disruption in class because I would disrupt my peers and then I would get in trouble for it. But that also was impeding because I would get in trouble for it. But yeah, I think that I realized that I provided some sort of entertainment value probably in like elementary school. But I still like when people are like, you're funny or like your dancing's funny. It's not like, oh yeah, like I know that. It's like, thank you. So.
Well, Maureen, you decided to go the funny route, like John McFadgen, who was sort of our mentor back at CKFM 1,000 years ago. And when we started out at the Virgin Radio, like I went into news and politics and all that stuff, and you decided to be funny. And it's
funny. So yeah, John McFadgen was the news director at CKFM. And when I was hired, like I said, it was a couple of years after Wendy had left. And he, when he offered me the job, he said, you could be the next Wendy Mesley, which was hilarious because Wendy was busy being Wendy Mesley. He was only a couple of years older than me, so she wasn't going to go anywhere. But that's kind of what he wanted for me. And he had this sort of avuncular interest in particularly the young women that he hired in the nicest possible way, I would say. Wouldn't you, Wendy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was a really good man. And so he threw me in the newsroom with all these, these news. Remember Bill Bright, Wendy? I mean, these guys were around. They were old when we started.
Okay, I remember there was Torben Winthrop. Like, who has a name like that? They all had names like Torben Winthrop.
Torben Winthrop does. And Hap Parnaby.
Which is a great name, but did they all have to be called Torben Winthrop?
They had some interesting names. And so I think John really wanted me to have that kind of, career. And the first newscast I did, I said someone was indicted in Tucson. And then when I realized I corrected myself, then I just thought that was hilarious. Indicted. What are the odds of saying that, twice in one newscast? And I couldn't straighten up. And after that, John said, you have to maintain composure. And I said, I don't think I want to.
Absolutely.
I don't think I want to. I think I want to enjoy the absurdity of what's going on. Not that I don't totally admire people like Wendy's one of the best journalists that we've ever had.
But politicians, you couldn't laugh in their face. No, you had to treat everybody sort of seriously.
Respectfully, right? Even when they don't deserve it. So
do you have to be nice to people, Jax, when they come on? Well, you got to be nice to your co-hosts. It's good you like them.
Yeah, no, I do like them. I think that, yeah, I'm usually nice. I can get a little like, we do go somewhere, it's bad dates. And if a guy, it's usually a guy, and I should say it's a guy mostly, but if a guy's being trash, I'm going to call him trash. That's the only time I'm like, come on now, like get it together. This is why you're getting ghosted. But no, I think I have a nice disposition to begin with. Like I'm usually nice to people, but I can I'll tell you where to go sometimes on the air if needed.
Speaking of relationship advice, so you have a love in your life and you're bringing her home for the first time.
I am. Yeah, her name is Michelle. We've been dating for 2 years. So in lesbian standard time, that's 30 years.
Yeah, you get a house like a week later or something, right?
Yeah, we moved in together on our first date. No, she's a darling. Yeah, but I'm going to take her. She's from Ontario. And yeah, we haven't been home. I've been home a couple times, like quick trips. And my mom wasn't super well a couple of years, so I went home with that. Like I haven't been home with like a, hello, here's Michelle kind of trip. So it's going to be really, really nice at the beginning of June. Really excited. Yeah.
Wow.
Your mom is cool, obviously.
Mom didn't even bat an eye when I came out. Like she was like, okay, you happy? All right. And my mom was an emergency nurse for 36 years. And, she worked in emergency and she worked in critical care through, the AIDS epidemic. She worked through nursing school with a lot of queer and gay nurses as well. Like she was down, like she was like, okay, like tell me something that's really wild. She was like, as long as you're happy, healthy, cool, whatever. Like she has a lot of, gay friends. She was like, all right. My older family, that wasn't as cool.
Really? Like the grandparents and the aunts and uncles kind of thing?
Yeah. Grampy wasn't very happy.
Because they don't understand, right? How's Grampy now?
He's dead. Sorry, that was dark.
Oh, well.
Okay, we should not laugh. No.
No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't.
Sorry, no. You shouldn't laugh at that, but you laugh at the awkwardness.
I know.
Oh my God. All right. So Michelle's never been to your home.
She's never been to my home. She's been in Nova Scotia for a couple of days with some friends, I think maybe 5 years. Like she's never done the proper Halifax experience. So I'm going to take her. My brother's there with his 2 kids and his wife. So yeah, we're going to have a big barbecue. She'll meet everybody. It's going to be nice.
Now, is there a perception that you've gone all bright lights, big city, and here comes Jax with her Toronto?
From Toronto.
Absolutely. And I've talked about this with a bunch of East Coast friends, but the second you leave it, they treat you like a traitor. Unless you're going to Alberta to make oil money. But the second that and it's not from everybody, I shouldn't say that, I shouldn't generalize, but once you leave, you think you're too good for Nova Scotia. And that's not the case. I love Nova Scotia. I think it's the most beautiful place ever, but I wanted to, do more in media. And yeah, but it's this perception that big bad smoke. Oh, here comes Toronto. Yeah. I feel like I'm quoting my brother.
Here comes Toronto. That's your name there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, big smoke, big city. There's Toronto, Jax. Yeah. But there I'm Jacqueline. I'm not Jax. So.
Your whole family calls you Jacqueline. Jax was your on-air name when you decided to make the move, or just was your on-air name?
Yeah, I wasn't given a choice, actually. My program director, Dan Barton, in my first year of radio when I worked for Z103 in Halifax, he was like, your name will be Jax. And at first I didn't like it. I was like, no, I'm Jacqueline. And I love it. I love it now. Yeah. He had 3 X's at first and like, Wendy, Mo, I don't look like a girl who has 3 X's in her name, so we shortened it down to 1. But I love it now.
That hasn't changed, though. Program directors, they want to change your name.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
My friend Anna Maria Tremonti, she was told in the early days that her name was too Italian sounding. So I don't know what they called her, but and so she did it for a year because when you're starting out, you do all kinds of stupid things. And then you go, no, actually, I got something to say and I'm going to be who I am and I have to be comfortable with my name. And she became Anna Maria Tremonti,
And she's done okay, I'd say, hey?
I think she's done all right, yeah.
A couple people know her name, I'd imagine.
I think there's a bright future for that woman, I'll tell you.
She's 30 as well.
So, Jax, what about you? Now, I don't want to put you on the spot because you love where you are and you love your gang and so on, but do you have a long-term dream? Or do you just want to keep doing what you're doing?
I mean, I love what I'm doing. And, morning radio was always my goal and my dream. And Toronto was just this huge, pipe dream. And now I'm doing it. I would eventually love to get into more digital, more visual medium while continuing to do radio. Yeah, I love doing video work. I love social media and I love entertaining on social media.
We have to talk about this because this is as much a part of your persona, I think, as your radio. I'm sure there are people who follow you on Instagram who've never heard you on the radio. So, Wendy, I don't know if you've seen this. So Jax was dressed as a sunflower or like an octopus or something.
Yeah, I followed her a little bit on Instagram. So there's this weird stuff dancing where you're up against a wall and then there's all these costumes. And yeah, no, you have a lot of fun. So I'm sure they all listen to you.
Where do you get the costume?
Yeah, I usually get them in the depths of hell on the internet in these weird little internet stores or Malabar's on Queen West, but now they're closed. So I can't rent as much. But yeah, I like to dance in costumes, and it's, an odd side of it, but why not? It's fun.
You've got to be fearless to go out there dressed as a sunflower.
It's been a dark couple of years, and even like the sunflower video had been my first time like dancing since kind of the world started reopening. And it was just around the Queen John building, but like, it's such a simple thing that makes people so happy, and people were happy to see it. And that made me happy. So it's been a garbage couple of years. So why not go dance as a sunflower on the road? Like, we've seen some dark things.
Yeah. Have you ever had any negative reaction, or do people just think you're maybe need some help and move on?
I've been like called not so nice things, but I always have to keep in mind who it's coming from. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're not doing well. So it's usually at Yonge and Dundas that I get yelled at. I'll put it that way. But no, usually people are great. They'll like, take a picture, a video. I don't know. It's fun to dance. Why not?
I think you've got the corner on that market. Don't see a lot of other octopi out there. So, you keep doing that.
Well, there's a big octopi movement now because of that movie, right? Like, I eat it maybe once a year, and I probably shouldn't confess to that because it's a very bad thing. And I know that if I watch the movie, I will never eat an octopus. So.
Okay, it's editing, Wendy. This is like, everybody goes, oh, did you see my octopus friend? And it's like, if you watch it, it's just, you can edit, you could make this pencil be your best friend if it's edited properly. And I'm not saying that the octopus, or is it a squid? I can't even remember. It's my octopus teacher. I'm not saying that they're not sentient and that they're not more intelligent than we think they are, but I really don't think, you're going to get some great wisdom from octopuses.
It's been lovely to meet you. I've seen you on the billboards or whatever. I guess you're on a bench or whatever, but you look great on the bench and in all the posters. And it's, I'm so like, things have changed a bit since Maureen and I were traffic reporters 1,000 years ago. She went on to do a morning show. Now you're doing one. Yeah, it's been a long time since we were traffic reporters and we were at CKFM, but yeah, it's a way healthier place with you there. I'm just so happy to meet you.
It sure is. I'm so proud of you, Jax. I mean, I haven't known you that long. I do remember going to London to see the wedding. Well, we didn't go to the wedding, but Harry and Meghan. And I remember going drinking afterwards. And Jax said, Mo, I want to hold you like a baby.
Yep. It was like a 7-hour drinking session. And you know what, Mo? You know what I thought was the coolest? Is you paid for all my drinks and everybody's food and stuff. You were such a nice leader. Thank you for that.
Honestly, I was probably making more money than anybody there. But nowadays, you can buy me a drink anytime, Jax.
No, it's such a pleasure. I'm such a fan. Mo, I worked with you, Wendy. I've been a fan of you for years. And yeah, you ladies are such legends. And I look up to you a lot. So thank you very much for having on me. What an honor.
Thank you for doing this. Well, that was just lovely.
Yeah. I guess I'm really struck by, and I think I sort of said it to her, just like, I think that we're in such a better place right now. And that, like I talked about my dad and about how horrific all that was, that being gay was a mental illness back in the 50s. And I think everything's so much better. And yet it's still like, it's a huge deal for people.
It is definitely better. I'm not going to disagree, but it's not 100% great. And I think for Jax being in Toronto and having this incredibly supportive group, TJ and Adam that she works with, certainly has helped. But like she said, every day she still gets either negative or questioning or critical email. I mean, we all do in media. I mean, no matter what your persuasion is, but she's still dealing with that. So it's better, but it's not all the way there.
Well, and also hearing how she used to be like angry and tough, and now like she's just trying to have a good time with her life, right?
And she really, I can't imagine her. I mean, I don't know her that well, but I can't imagine her actually being, well, I mean, if the worst thing she is saucy.
At 15, oh my God, who has ever heard of that?
I did want to ask her, and maybe the opportunity will present itself, because I didn't want to just talk about her being gay, because I mean, it doesn't define her. It's part of who she is, but I mean, it doesn't define her any more than any of our gender or sexuality should define us. I am curious though, we have kids a little bit younger than her, and there seems to be so much more fluidity about sexuality, particularly with young women, that they will say, oh, I'm bisexual or I'm queer. Whereas I don't think that it was as easy to confess or admit to that, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it sure wasn't. Well, I guess I'm going back to high school, which was, I hate to say, more than 20 years ago. And yeah, all the gay people left the school because it wasn't welcoming. And there were jokes about gay people, and you were only allowed to be straight back then. And it took a long, long, long time for things to change. And so, yeah, I think our kids who are in their early 20s, or you've got one a little bit older, yeah, it's super different. And I think it's great. Not everything's perfect, but everything's great.
What? Not everything's perfect? Well, let's see what we can do to make it that way.
Yeah. Well, it was really fun. I'm glad that you suggested her because, yeah, that's more your world as a morning host and stuff. So it was really interesting to go back there because that's how I started out too.
It was my world. I wouldn't want to go back to it, honestly. And do you know what I hope for Jax? I hope that she gets her own gig and that she's not the third chair, as equal as she says it might be. And it's nothing against the fellas that she works with, but it would just be nice because there are very few women who are running their own shows in this country in radio. So I wish that for her.
Yeah, well, things need to keep changing. Hope so. Lovely to see you, and we'll do more.
The Women of Ill Repute with Wendy Mesley and Maureen Holloway. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or at womenofillrepute.com.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.